Hello, welcome to the second tutorial video. This is going to be a broad overview on just a few array functions that are built into JavaScript. So this first one that we'll look at is the map function. And what this does is it does something, pretty much whatever you want it to every single element of an array. So in this case, the something that we're doing to an array is we are dividing every single one of those elements by 2. The array that we start with is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and we're going to divide every single one of those numbers, every single one of those elements by 2. So if we just think through it briefly before running the code, then 2 divided by 2 would be 1, and we have 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So let's just run that. And there we go. There's our new array console logged down there. So anything that you can imagine wanting to do to every single one of your elements is what you would use mapping for. So let's look at filter. Filter is filtering out your array such that any element inside of it must match whatever this logic is. It must be true for this. So for example, if we look at 1, is 1 mod 2 equal to 1? And this mod here is just saying when we use this mod symbol here, is there a remainder of 1? So this is just a way basically to see is this odd or is this even? Because if you use mod 2 for an even number, you'll get 0. So by checking to see if it's equal to 1, we're seeing is it odd, right? So if we run this and we use divided by 2, which is our new array, and we filter it to where it only has odds, then we should get only 1, 3, and 5. So let's take a look at that. There we go. We get our first array of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which was created by dividing this by 2 on each element with the map, and then we filtered it down into only the odds. So you can also, of course, string these together. So for example, if we wanted to do this one, const only odds. Let's see. How about divided by 2 only odds? There. So this is going to be exactly the same thing. Num is such that num divided by 2 dot filter. So basically, we're just stringing these together. You can see that the logic is exactly the same, but instead of setting up 2 variables and having this one and this one, now we're just doing it in one line here. So if we were to log this to the console again, only odds, then you'll see that we should get, oops, no, there we go, play. Then yeah, we get our second array here that matches this one. So this is another place where I wanted to bring up, you don't actually have to always chain map and filter. This is a really good example of where we could use reduce to get everything inside of one built-in function instead of 2. And not like it matters for such a small array, but if you had something larger and wanted to try making your logic more efficient, then you can do it this way. So first, let's just look at reducers in general, another built-in array function. So let's use our initial array here still. What we're going to do is we're just going to add it all together. So this is the most common use of the reduce function. So we'll take the, it's just called r, right? Yeah. Const sum r, we'll just say that is equal to r.reduce. Got our 2 parameters there, a plus b. And I'll explain why we're doing it this way in a second. But first, let's just log it to the console. And let's think through it for a moment. What is 2 plus 4? 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 8 is 20 plus 10 is 30. So we should get 30 here when we log this to the console, and we do. I wanted to show you this simple use of the reduce first, so that we can explain what these parameters are. The first one is often actually referred to even in the parameter and is actually really called the accumulator. So you'll see it written like this pretty often. This right here is the current element of the array that you're looking at. So I called it A and B because that's what I'm used to as I write these usually, but accumulator and current is the more descriptive name of those things that you're looking at inside of that reduce function. So it's implied that we start at 0 because JavaScript is smart and it knows, well, okay, maybe that's debatable, but JavaScript is smart enough to know that we're starting at 0 here because it says, what's the first element? It's a number. Okay, well, we'll just start at 0. So putting 0 here should give us 30 as well, and it does. So what happens if we say, okay, instead of starting at 0, I want you to start at 1. So we're setting our accumulator to be 1 at first. We get 31. So hopefully no surprises there. And of course, if we started at 5, we should get 35. There it is. So you can set this accumulator to be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a number either. And that's what I wanted to show here. We're going to comment these logs out here since we shouldn't need them anymore. Comment you out. Okay. So let's look at how we would do the same thing that we did here with the map and the filter, but just inside of a single reduce function. So we're taking our array, we are going to divide the values by 2, and then we are going to filter it so that we only see an array with just odds in it. So let's try that out. So we'll just call this reduced filtered. And this will be r.reduce. I'm just going to use A and B again. So remember, A is our accumulator, B is going to be our current element that we're looking at. And let's make sure that we set it up so that it knows to return an array. This is what we're going to be eventually returning. And since this is going to be more complex logic, we need to throw in some brackets here so that we can throw in some logic into the reduce function here. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to say const divided equals b divided by 2. And then we're going to say if divided mod 2 is equal to 1, then a dot push divided. Okay. So a dot push, why is it a dot push? It's because our accumulator is actually this array right here. We also need to return a though. Otherwise, it will be reset. So it needs to actually have this return statement here. So let's run it. Oh, sorry, we need to console log it too. There we go, 135. Okay, so this, why is this maybe more efficient? It's because we're not doing a map and then a filter. And even though we did this one in one line, this is also a map and then a filter. So if you can imagine what that's doing, it's going through your entire array one time to divide everything, and then a second time it's going through it again to filter it down. Whereas this one is dividing it, and then it's immediately checking to see if that divided value there is even or odd. And if it is odd, it's pushing that into this accumulator here. And then we're returning the accumulator so that it remembers it for the next value that it's checking. So for something so small, like I said, it's not important to do this, but I think that's such a neat use of reduce, is to be able to kind of combine other things like map and filter into one, essentially. So that should showcase the power of reduce on some level. You can set your accumulator to anything that you want, though. It doesn't have to be an array. It doesn't have to be a number. It can be an object. I haven't used it with maps, but I believe you can do that as well. So yeah, let's leave it there for now. That is our somewhat brief video on maps, filters, and reducers.